Call the meeting to order. Wallace here, Campfield here, Conley
Here.
Bennett
Here.
Bono, Media
Here.
Paul. Can we run over this on the pledge?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Guys, thanks for calling. I know it's on short notice, but it's something we had to get done. Want to introduce Chip?
We're here for the annual audit. Chip Clark's here from D'Arcangelo. Chip, you're up.
Great. Can I use this podium or you want me someplace else?
Not really what you want.
Great. Well, good morning. What we have in front of you is the land bank financials. It's actually the second year. Last year was a short year. It was a 7-month year. This was the first 12-month period that we've had. What you have are two items. First being the required communication letter. If there was any difficulties or disagreements with management, we would note those in this letter. So it's a pretty standard letter regarding our ability to perform our audit procedures on the land bank and offer an opinion on the financial statements. One thing to note is these financials get blended with the Herkimer County overall financials. It's called a blended component unit. And you'll see that reference in the financial statements as well. So this will become part of those financial statements. I'll get right into it. This won't really take all that long. These financials are much shorter than the Herkimer County financials, so you'll see. But they do get structured in the same way, meaning they have to comply with government accounting standards and government auditing standards on how we compile them. So what you'll see, if you go to page 1 of the financials, you'll see is this is the opinion paragraph, opinion letter, and the first paragraph is the opinion paragraph. This is what's called an unmodified clean opinion, which is the highest level of opinion that an audit provides. Basically means the financial statements can be relied upon with reasonable assurance. A pretty standard letter relative to those, our ability to opine on the financial statements and offer a clean opinion on the financial statements. If you go to page 3, we're also required, because it's a governmental entity, to perform the audit in accordance with government auditing standards. That basically requires us to gain an understanding of the internal controls, do some testing on transactions. There's not many transactions with the land bank, so it's pretty easy. But we do have to comply with comply with the government auditing standards. And if there was any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls, we would note those here. We are required, because the organization has to comply with PAAA through the ABO, the New York State ABO. We also have to comply with certain reporting relative to the investments and the 2925 of the Public Authorities Law. Break 1 second. Oh, thank you. Yeah. There were some revisions to the initial draft, some typos, nothing major. So on page 5 of the financial statements. So a clean letter relative to the compliance with the Public Authorities Law and the compliance with certain of the policy standards relative to PAAA. As part of the government auditing standards, of government accounting standards, we have to include what's called a management discussion and analysis. That begins on page 6. Basically, what the management discussion and analysis is an executive summary of the financials. And so this will give you a kind of a prior year, current year comparison, and is meant to kind of summarize the overall financial statements. So it's a good read, but I will move you right to the actual financial statements unless you have questions, if you had gone through it already, you have any questions on the management discussion analysis, I'd be happy to go over those. But the actual financial statements begin on page 9, in what's called the statement of net position. You'll see total current assets of 247,437. You got a grant receivable of 177,879. Cash and cash equivalents of 62,872. Property held for sale. After you did have some transactions with property held for sale, so we bring them in at a estimated acquisition value, and then anything that's sold, we show that as a gain or loss on sale of property, and you'll see that in the income statement. So total current assets of 247,437. You had a Herkimer County advance, the monies that came in as part of a cash flow advance of 157,400. We have to defer that until it's earned, so that'll get recognized in subsequent years, leaving you with a net position at the end of the year of 90,037. On page 10, we have the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in that position. Total income of 358,169. That was made up of grants of 336,782. A loss on sale of property of 40,718. Donation of real property. So we bring it in as an estimated acquisition value, and that shows basically as a revenue, and then also as an asset. And then when it's sold, it gets taken out and shown as a loss on sale or a gain on sale, depending. Total expenditures at the end of the year for the 12 months of 286,938. You had property rehabilitation of 173,919. In kind between the Herkimer County of 10,100. That shows as both a revenue and an expense, offsetting expense. Salary and benefits of 70,718 for Mike. And leaving you with excess revenues over expenditures in the year of 71,231, and increasing your net position from the 7 months last year up from 18,806 to 90,037.
That's a good question.
Sure.
I think I understood what you said. But so when it says gain or loss on sale of property, that's because as a donation you valued it at 50,000, and we sold it for 40,000 less than that, right? Basically.
Well, yes, yeah. So you had income of about $5,000 and for the year. That's right. You're right. Yeah.
So it's not really technically a loss, but it is because we
It
didn't
is.
pay for the
Yeah.
property, but that's what it's valued for, and we sold it for less.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Yep. That's correct.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
The property renovation or rehabilitation, is demolitions included in that?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, anything, demolitions included in that. If there's properties, the estimate, the significant estimate comes when we estimate the acquisition value. And so I researched land banks across the state and kind of came up with a reasonable acquisition value, which is roughly about 1/3 of the appraised value. Okay, and it's really just an estimate. It flows through the income statement, anyways, like you mentioned, as a loss on sale of property, because you're bringing it in at a different value than what you're selling it for, and usually you're selling it for a lot less than what you put into it. So there's always going to be a loss. Does that answer that question for you?
Yes.
Good. Okay. On page 11, we get into the statement of cash flows. So this is really just going to show you where the cash went throughout the year. Cash received from government grants of 332,400. That includes the receivable, the change in receivable. Cash received from customers. So you'll see the 5,000. That's what you received as part of the sale of properties. 5,000. Cash paid out for goods and services of 312,240, leaving you with an increase in cash of 25,163 from the previous year. And then pages 12 through the end of the financial statements, 12 through 15, are just required note disclosures. They'll kind of highlight any of the The estimate, like I mentioned, the 1/3, the acquisition value estimate, as well as some of the bases of accounting that we follow and the auditing standards that we follow. So pretty standard note disclosures as part of the financial statements. And that encompasses pretty much the whole review of the financial statements unless you have questions. One thing to note is these need to get uploaded to the ABO through the Paris system. Kim will do that. She's got the final, if there's no changes to this, she's got the final copies to be able to upload by the end of this month, which is what the requirement is. There's also a 990 this year that we'll have to file, and a Char 500, which we're working on right now. That'll need to be filed by mid-May.
I make a motion to accept as presented.
Second. Any further questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? We could talk about it, but we can't vote on it.
Yeah.
I think, maybe I'm
Yeah, we
wrong.
can talk.
Maybe I'm wrong. Motion to adjourn, Cindy? Second, Ray?
Yep.
All in favor? Opposed? So carried. Thanks, guys, for coming in.
Yes, thank you.
Something has to be, one of those things that has to be done.